optic cup. You remember in the lecture I talked about the formation of the optic nerve, and that there was a slot in the optic cup through which the axons grew back to the brain. Well, there it is. All vertebrates have it. That's the little slot, which will close later with the passage of time. All right, so this has to be the floor of the diencephalon because that's where it's connected. So in the roof of the diencephalon, please go over here, sir. This is the roof of the diencephalon. Down a little bit. There's something you can just see right there. There's a little bump on the roof of the diencephalon. What's that? This is all we see the epiphysis of the roof of the diencephalon. It's not too clear here, but it's right there. So there's a little indentation here, come back. And then there's this swollen area here, which terminates in that depression. What is this region of the brain? What is this region? It's the third in the row. What is this region? There are only 5 parts of the brain. What is it? That's right, it does begin with an M, but if you put M on the exam, he'll mark it right.
It's been a little while.
The middle one, it's called the mesencephalon. The middle one is the correct answer. Okay. What is this? Whoops. What is this impression here called?
Dr. Sarah?
Yes,
I'm
please.
sorry. What did you say the eye was on the floor of?
The diencephalon is connected. Eyes are connected to the diencephalon, period.
That's what
That
I
is the
thought.
vertebrate pathway. All of them do that. So frog, fish, fowl makes no difference. Humans, it's always the same. It is the axial forming mechanism.
Thank you.
So here's a sharp indentation, and it's a narrow zone, and we call this the isthmus. Will never be on the exam. The questions will be what is on each side. So on one side it's the, and on the next it's, and you will look at the mesencephalon, which has a thick wall which suddenly becomes thin. So this is myelencephalon, okay? The thin wall zone is myelencephalon. So there are 5 parts, and the middle one is middle brain, mesencephalon, okay? And the first one is teld, myelencephalon, all right? That's the rule in vertebrates. All of them do that. So right here is the structure known as MEP. And here's the floor of the mesencephalon. So if we follow the floor back, right here there's a little bump which has a darker color. Okay, now come up here, please, Michael. Notice it's right at the edge of MEP-MI. What is that?
Otic.
No.
Oh, it's so close.
This is the trigeminal ganglion. This is number 5. I just told you number 5 is always found at MEP-MI. This is the MEP-MI junction, and it's right there. You cannot see it very well, but it's there. You said otic. Otic is in the posterior of the myelencephalon. So if you go back here,
I'm
look.
not confused.
Now I know. I know. That's why we're reviewing. Okay, please.
I do have a quick question. The trigeminal,
Yes.
cranial, and semilunar, those are all the same.
There are many different names. It's called Gasserian, semilunar, number 5, trigeminal, okay? Use any one. I'm happy with all of them. And I've told you before, all these strange names have appeared because the old investigators who looked at this did it at different points in time. They didn't have the advantage of putting it all together in some convenient way. So mammals, it was called trigeminal, semilunar in mammals, but I don't care. If you just give it a number, here's the easy way to remember. You have 5 of these and it's number 5. It won't change. It's number 5. Okay? So that shows us a good deal. And so we're posterior to this region. We are out of the brainstem and we are in the neural tube. So this is neural tube traveling down here. You can see the floor. This is neural tube. Neural tube, neural tube, neural tube. To wherever it's coming back around here, neural tube. Okay, let's go back up in this direction. Let's go to this region right here. All right, so here's an indentation. Hard to see right there, but it's actually called condyle. So this must be the upper jaw, which is adjacent to the eye right here. Upper jaw region, here's the eye. Look at me. Eye, upper jaw, maxillary area, okay? So if this is eye and upper jaw and that's mouth, what's this? Bendable is the correct answer. The first air arch passes through there. Okay? And now we have a little slit right here. Sir, get that in the center. Well, that one. This is pharyngeal gill slit number 1. This is pharyngeal gill slit number 2. This is pharyngeal gill slit number 3. And you count. We require that you recognize the first gill bars. Mandibular, hyoid, carotid. If you wish to call them 1, 2, 3, guess what we will accept? 1, 2, 3. All right? So he puts a pointer here, and he tells you, identify the structure immediately to the anterior, which is this one. How would you answer? Mandible or number 1? And asking a question like that is to measure your understanding of the axial relationship. Please?
So I see the stomadeum there, and then the mandible.
Come back to stomadeum, sir.
Just right there.
Here's eye,
And then it's that at the top.
mouth.
Yeah.
By the way, what comes off right here under the brain? The adenohypophysis, also called Rathke's pouch. We won't show it there, it's too hard to see. But this is obvious, is it not?
Yeah.
This is obvious, is it not?
Yeah.
This is now heart. Which side of the heart is this? Show this.
So
Which side of the heart is that?
the right.
It is on this.
It's on the right side, isn't it? So it's ventricle to bulb of the heart. Ventricle into the bulb of the heart, into the aortic arches, which are up here. On the other side is where atrium sinustenosis will be. So it is sometimes hard to ask a question about that in full mouth. However, I want you to recognize where the heart is, because when we come down here, that's the ventricle. Do you see this ridge right here? What is that ridge? That is the bud of the forelimb, the wing. Do not call it a leg, you'll mark it wrong. It's the wing, forelimb. That is the apical ectodermal ridge. Now, I'm pointing this out because my lecture will deal with this apical ectodermal ridge in the bud and why it will make a limb. And we will look at that story coming up very short in the following lecture.
So do we call it a wing bud?
Wing bud is fine.
Okay.
Forelimb is fine. It is not a hind limb. Hind limbs are not next to the heart. It is not a leg. Legs are not next to the heart. Okay? Are we good? Would you please show 96 hours? Now here's the more advanced stage. The more advanced that it becomes, the more obvious the structures are. So everything I just did at 96 hours becomes very, very evident. It's just that 96 hours is gigantic. So doing what we did a moment ago, here's the first anterior part of the brain, which is always telencephalon.
Jesus.
Doesn't the telencephalon make two buds, one to each side, which are called the cerebral hemispheres? Well, this thing is making cerebral hemispheres. So you're looking through a cerebral hemisphere into the central region that connects the two. It's called the foramen of Monroe, and who cares? Who cares? Who cares?
So foramen of Monroe will be on practical?
No. But the telencephalon could be.
Right.
And that's one of 5, and it's the first one. If you miss it, bang. Okay, please.
When you have a slide up for your practical, are you going to have it this close, or are you going to have the entire thing?
We will try to put it on a dissection microscope where you can see the whole. I don't have that facility here. But on a dissection microscope, what we will
Because
do
it's being
sometimes,
projected twice the size because it's
we can put a little paper pointer on it, or we can take a drop of ink and put a drop of ink on it and refer you to that drop of ink. Okay, all those make it more reasonable. Seeing the whole thing is fair. Doing it like this is terrible.
Yeah.
But I have no choice, okay? I said look at your own, look in the book. I have to do it this way.
Well, the book is like 10 times better than the slides, so that it's
Yeah, well, but I have to have something to refer to and to work through. But the rules are the same. The rules are not changing. We're trying to press upon you what you saw in a frog we see here. It's the same story, it's a little older. Sir, would you take it through what I just did? So the next part of the brain is, well, this is
That's
the
not
floor.
right.
The next part of the brain is, wait, you're going too far.
Sorry.
Here's the roof of the diencephalon. Why am I sure it's the roof of the diencephalon? Why am I absolutely certain it's the roof of the diencephalon? There's the epiphysis. The epiphysis is always in all vertebrates found in the roof of the diencephalon. Period. That's it. That's it. Look at that epiphysis. Wow, that's a biggie. Biggie. Sounds like a hamburger.
Biggie.
Yeah. Okay, and the floor of this diencephalon will have, there's the developing eye with the choroid fissure, the slot at the bottom. And coming into the stomatidal area, there's something that grows under the brain called the adenohypophysis, which is very hard to see at this point. So if this is the area toward the upper jaw, bring this all down so we can see it.
How far down?
Bring what's up here in space
Oh,
down
sorry.
to here. So the first structure then will be the
Mandible?
mandible, and then hyoid, and so on down the line. It's a little hard to see as it gets more developed, and there are multiple layers. We typically will not ask the question on the practical using the whole mount because of the layering problem. But if we have a section, there are no layers. So if you see upper jaw, then the next structure across the stomadeum will be mandible. 2, 3. You can count.
I did learn that.
All right.
So, out of curiosity, in a book, it says that instead of having 3 pharyngeal arches, and there's actually 2, but the number 1 is broken up into the maxillary.
One does divide into upper mandible and lower upper maxillary and lower mandible.
Okay, so that's why one.
Yes, there's a bud that divides, that's correct.
Okay.
But that division took place a long time ago.
True.
It's here now, you can count it over. Okay. Now see the back over here. If you follow the oh, by the way, here's the heart, right? Here's the heart. Okay. Here's the anterior part of the head. Up here somewhere. Where is the head? Come around here. Here's the anterior part of the head. Okay. Here's the diencephalonic area. Here's the heart. Go past the heart, and there's this projection right here. You see that? What is that bud-like projection? Wing bud, thank you very much. Now, wing bud is getting larger, and you can see the apical ectoderm, and I will talk about experiments in the lecture where this will be cut off and separated into layers and manipulated. That's coming.